All right, what's up, guys? We're live. This is Keith Kelfis with the Untrapped podcast right now with Tim Croll. You got to listen to this. Is your business broken? Do you have things that you're struggling with? Are you stuck like at a glass ceiling and you're out there working and toiling, working your tail off, working through the rain, trying to get more customers, grow your business, hire some employees, and get to the next stage of business? But maybe you're like on a plateau or something, right? Well, I want to introduce you to Tim Croll. He's built multiple businesses into the 6, 7, and multiple 7 figures. He brought a business from like $5,000 a month to 14 million a month with up to around 150 employees. He's owned a flooring company. The guy, literally, I see him on Facebook. He's building Legos and stuff with his son, and they've like been on this Lego TV show. The guy's epic, and his mind is very expansive. We've also had the opportunity to share the stage with him at some huge conventions, like in Texas a couple years ago. Just listening.
Yeah, that was with Hindelighters, and he did his big thing. Yeah, and then we were at huge event together. We were at a couple different ones.
Bro, it was epic. And to be around you, to think about how your mind, you think in terms of systems and you ask questions, and you're also a business coach. So you have heard like almost everything from like someone getting started up into the millions. Like you've seen it. And so you've been able to identify what are these higher quality questions people going to ask, bro. So happy to have you on my channel. And I see people coming in lives, and we're going to get to the comments towards the end. What's up, Tim Croll?
Yo, man, I'm so happy to be here. There's nothing I love more, and I actually have it written on my board. It's like, how many people have I impacted today? And that's my goal. I mean, so those that are responding in the comments, man, if we say something, you're going to make my day just by putting it in the comments and saying, dude, this had impact on me, right? This is what I love. I love hearing that stuff because, man, you're going to make my day like just complete just by doing that.
Love it, bro. So talk a little bit about what you do, and then I want to get literally right into the meat and potatoes and some of the challenges that service business owners run into, and then what type of questions do you ask them? Because I want to find the epiphany bridges. Like I'm up into this whole epiphany thing, the thing that makes you go, wait, oh my God, that's it. And then what seemed like an impossible brick wall, all of a sudden now there's a door and you can actually walk through it, and you're like, and it literally levels up everything. Stuff like that, dude.
Yeah. So, I mean, as a coach, and to be quite frank with you, and everybody like, why should I listen to you? Why should we listen to the rest of this podcast? Why should we go down this road with you guys? Man, I didn't want to be a coach. To be quite frank with you, for years, I fought against being a coach. And here's why. Every time that I've ever gone out there and listened to anybody, you have these gurus that talk about life. They talk about how to actually build your business. And then you hear things like, oh man, we're going to crush it. And what are you rocking? And what are you doing? And I'm like, you know what? I get it. We got to talk about the highlights. We got to talk about what's good, but we don't always talk about what we're struggling with. We don't always talk about where the rubber's meeting the road. What are the pain points that we're actually dealing with on a regular basis? And when I embraced the idea of being a coach, it was, my purpose is to draw out your greatness. And that's what a coach does. The coach is there to really draw out the greatness that's in you. So, I mean, I'm sure lots of people have played sports, but when you're running those suicides back and forth in basketball, or running the laps in soccer, or whatever sport that you're in, you probably didn't really like your coach that well because he was pushing you, driving you. But his whole purpose was really to truly draw out that greatness and make you a better player, make you a better athlete. And when I look at my job as a coach, my job is to push you, ask those hard questions, and draw that greatness out of you, because it's there. It really is. You were created uniquely, individually. You've got raw talent that's there. And then sometimes, man, you and I, we've talked, there's just a belief issue. There's a perspective shift. Like you said, that wall, you come and you hit that wall. It's like, how do I get through that wall? And sometimes it's just a few questions. A coach will draw that greatness right out of you. That probably didn't even answer your question. I know we're live, so I'm just like,
no, go on a roll, bro. This is all you.
Yeah. So man, there's just so much. And I that's the reason why I would suggest listening to the rest of this, because I really want to challenge the system or the narrative that a lot of people actually put out there, is if I just do 1, 2, 3, then everything's going to be okay. Because quite frankly, there's a lot of blocks. Yes, the systems are there. Yes, the systems are needed. But there's also this aspect that happens internally that we have fallen prey to a lot of false narratives that we believe that everything is just going to go 1, 2, 3, and it's all going to just fall. That's not the way the world works.
Something just popped up in my head. Wait a second.
Go.
The other night, okay, well, something came up about Legos, because I know you do Legos, and somebody was talking about, or I saw Legos, and all of a sudden I looked at the different colors of Legos and the different. Now, I've only played with Legos when I was a kid, right? And I know there's Legos that people are building like entire. Like, this is actually a big thing if you get into it. But like, I thought of like, oh my God, it's like a business, like building blocks. And I had this major epiphany, and I reached out on Facebook Messenger and I hit you up, and I told you this whole epiphany that I had about Legos, and you're like the perfect person to talk to about that. And then that's how this conversation came about. And that's how actually we're here talking right now.
Yeah.
And that's awesome. But can you talk about, in terms, do you have any metaphors about like business and Legos and stuff that's
oh my goodness. I'm so glad you asked. So, I mean, basically the way I talk is there's 5 building blocks. And obviously, because of the tie-in with Lego, I use that quite a bit. But there's 5 building blocks in your own personal life and in your own personal business that you need to have. And the way that these building blocks work is they build right on top of each other. And you can continue to build out a bigger foundation by just repeating and going back and focusing on these blocks, and then they become bigger and bigger, right? So first of all, the very first one is you have to, so I'm going to tie it into the Lego aspect. Lego actually means, so this is a little side note, rabbit hole real quick here, but Lego is 2 Danish words that mean play well. So Lego, in their branding, actually came up with this genius plan of being able to say, we're going to call it Lego, which in Danish words means actually play well. So we're going to go down that road. So here's the 5 building blocks. Number 1 is, are you playing well as a player? So you're developing your own personal aspects, and you have self-discipline and personal growth and that kind of stuff. So leading yourself, playing well as a player. Number 2 is playing well against the clock. And there's so many things that we could talk about as far as with the clock. And on Lego Masters, we actually had the big red clock. And if you ever watched Lego Masters, you see that there's a time, there's a countdown. Quite frankly, in our businesses, the clock would be your finances. It would be your time management. It would be scheduling. It would be all of those things. Are you playing well against the clock? Number 3 is, are you playing well as within the team itself? And then number 4 is, are you playing well as a team leader and coaching those guys and bringing the leaders up? And then the 5th thing is playing well by sharing your experiences. And those are the 5 building blocks, and they continue to build. So I just want to give you that framework. We're not going to dive. We don't have time to dive into all of that, but I just want to kind of tempt your tummy with that kind of stuff. So back onto the main question of what you're asking in regards to the actual Lego and how does that work in. The biggest interesting part about Lego is it's a square block. And it's a 1x, 2x, 3x4. They got 2x2s, 2x4s. They got all these different square blocks, and I'm sure everybody understands what's going on with Lego. In fact, I actually have a couple of golden. If you ever watch Lego Masters, you got golden bricks, and this is just a couple of them. But you take these things, take these blocks, and you start putting them together. And then this is what's so unique, is that every individual has a different way of looking at it. So I can look at 6 blocks, and we usually, if I was doing this with a group, I would actually hand out 6 blocks, and I would say, build me a duck. And there's 2 red ones, there's 4 yellow ones, there's 1 with an eye on it, and I say, just build me a duck. And I guarantee you, and I actually did this with the Michigan Department of Health, and there was 200 people there. Of the 200 people that I gave these 6 blocks to and said, build me a duck, I only had about 10 total that were exactly the same. And so here's what I mean by that, because when we look about it, so when I say, okay, step by step, if we follow instructions, it's 1, 2, 3. But yet our creativity and all of our own unique personality, all of the things, all of our experiences, all of our talents, all of our skills, they're all going to be different. And when we look at those building blocks, we'll start to put these things together in different ways. So in other words, you may be really good at taxes or accounting. That's your skill set. So you're that building block, but you need to bring another person in to be able to fit in that building block. And it's going to look a little bit different depending on who you are and how your personality and how your characteristics and talents all fit together. So I know that it's kind of a different concept and a different way, but dude, don't beat your head up and don't feel guilty about the fact if you're not good at accounting. That's okay. You're not meant to be good at everything.
Yeah, that just brought something to mind. I was really, really frustrated in my business a couple of years ago. I called a friend. It was actually Stan Genetic, the dirt monkey, and he just cut me right off. He made it short. He goes, listen, I'm going to tell you something, Kelfus. recipe and formula for success for you is so incredibly unique to you because there's nobody like you. You can go out and do exactly what somebody else did, but like, in your heart and your mind, like this, you just got to believe yourself and go for it. And then, go find other people that are, if you suck at accounting, you got an accountant or a bookkeeper, things like that. And so continue.
Yeah. So I would say this: when you look at things, take it in stride, because there's some things that are going to resonate for you that are not going to resonate for somebody else. And looking at frameworks, I mean, there's a bunch of different coaching programs that are out there. There's different frameworks. I mean, you can read Traction and come up with EOS system. And
I was just thinking of Traction by Gino Wickman. I was literally just going to say it. And I was like, and then
it's a framework. That is a framework. That is an awesome framework to use. If you use mine with the building blocks aspect, that's a framework to be able to use. You plug in some things. I'll give you a great one. This one probably everybody is familiar with personalities. And every time I talk about personalities, inevitably, there's a couple people in the audience that I get the eye roll. Like it's just inevitable. It happens. The thing with personalities, it's a framework. Some people have been burned, and I've seen this where they actually go into a corporate, they use the DISC profile, and they're basically profiling people to see who they're going to fire or who they're going to let go. And so there's like a negative connotation, but there's also a positive so there's all kinds of things that go on with personality. So you have DISC profiling, you've got the animal profile, you've got your Myers-Briggs ones, there's like 4 or 5 different types of personality profiling out there that happens. And it's important to know that you're going to resonate with one. Take what you can, learn from that, apply what you can, but don't feel bad if you're not resonating with DISC and somebody else is. And like, oh, dude, I got to do this. Dude, just focus on what you got and then be able to build on that. That's part of learning yourself, leading yourself, and becoming a great player in the game of business and in the game of life.
Mm-hmm.
Talking so much, I'm gonna have to grab water. So I'm here.
Grab some water. Yeah, you reminded me of. I read this book called by Florence Latour called Personality Plus.
And yeah, Florence Littauer. I actually met her. Her and her daughter Maria.
Dude, I read that book twice. There's sanguine, melancholy, phlegmatic, and choleric.
Correct. And they actually have 3 books. So let's just touch on that because that's probably one of my favorite books to read. There's 3 books: Personality Profile, Personality Plus, and then your Personality Tree. And the interesting thing about this, and this is where it goes into some of the things that you don't normally talk about when you're talking business, the personality tree talks about how your personality shifts based on the type of family that you grow into. So when you look at it, so for example, you're talking about, and let me just quickly define it, because you got choleric, which is basically your dogma, like you're going to get it done, you're going to bull through everybody, and then you've got exactly, it's like, boom, I want to get this right. So if you're naturally inclined to that way, and you grow up in a family where both of your parents are very choleric, you typically will revert back to either a phlegmatic or a melancholy personality underneath of your parents, because your parents were such strong cholerics that you're actually reverting back into this phlegmatic, melancholy kind of personality. It's not a natural state. Now, that's the idea, right? So we take that idea and that concept, now you transfer it into the business. And if you hire somebody that has that exact same personality as your parents, you're going to find yourself tending to go back to a melancholy or phlegmatic personality because it reminds you of what the past was. And it's these ingrained channels that we have in our brain that is like, it's just hard to break out unless you're able to recognize that this is a pattern and this is something that I'm doing in my life. And then you shorten that cycle of, okay, I just went back to, I recognize it, I'm going to get out of it. I recognize it, I'm going to get out. You got to be able to recognize some of that stuff. And that only really comes with somebody that's asking you the hard questions of, why did you do it that way? Why did you hire that individual versus, there's one guy I was coaching. Just cut me off if you need me to. There's one guy that
you're just getting warmed up, bro. I can feel it.
Well, yeah, you just let me know. Just cut me off and say, hey, let's go down this rabbit hole or whatever you need to do. But there's one guy that I was coaching, and he struggled to hire individuals. Like every time somebody came in, he was struggling in the worst way to be able to get somebody that would come in and that would end up staying and being a great worker. And so we started digging into this a little bit and looked at a little bit at his personality, looked at the people that he was hiring. Yes, he had systems. He had all kinds of stuff, was using all the things that you get told to use, right? The challenge that he was running into is that he was hiring as a father, So just bear with me.
As
He was
a
hiring as a
father.
father, and he was treating his employees like kids, not like employees. And so there was a little bit of this enabling that was going on. So he would take somebody that he felt sorry for, thought that he could actually train them, bring them up, and like, you know what, it'll get better. It'll get better. I can't tell you. There's probably 50 employees that he went through, just trying to be able to and help them, but he was actually enabling them, and then they would just burn him. And he's like, I don't understand what's going on. Every time I hire somebody, they just run away, or they I pay for them to do this, or I got them these brand new boots, or I got like all of these things that were going on, and they just kept running away. I'm like, dude, you're enabling them. I mean, like, you got to have rules, and you got to be able to put that together. Anyway, so
dude, you're just opening up some gold nuggets here, because there's some stuff that people watching are too afraid to admit. They have these weird boundary issues with employees, and they don't know how to, like, where it goes. And then they can think, well, it's the employees, or maybe it's me, or
I'll tell you what right now. And this is why I did the 5 building blocks. And this is exactly why. Because
I did survey on Facebook. I was like, what's the number one issue in my business? 365 comments, 60% of them employee related, finding employees, retaining employees, trying to find good help, and then all the other stuff that everybody else has, but the employee thing. So
I do want to kind of put a little category on it, and I think this is probably the hardest time in the history of hiring, finding good employees, being able to have it. It is definitely the hardest, and I don't want to gloss over and say that there's something going on in our current economy that's causing some of that to happen, which is that's a whole nother conversation. So I do want to recognize that and put that there. But at the same time, there's a lot of things that we do that screw it up and mess it up. And so that's why, like I said, I built the 5. I talked about the 5 building blocks. And the very, very first one comes with who you are. How are you leading yourself? Do you understand your personality? Do you understand your communication style? Do you understand the way that you actually are? Your personality, your skill sets, your talents, your history, your belief system of how to do business, all of that stuff has a direct impact on who it is that you're hiring. It has a direct impact on how you're leading your company. It has a direct impact on how you're training your employees. It has all of that stuff is tied into you. At the bottom line, it's how do you become a better leader, a better person? And if you don't work on that, you're never going to fix your hiring system. You're never going to fix your employees. You're never going to fix your training system. You've got to work on you in order to be able to be that person. And that's what a coach does. Like I said, you got to draw out that greatness. You're not going to like what I say, but you're going to draw out that greatness. I feel like I need to pause to let that sink in a little bit.
I'm just letting it sink in. Hey, real quick, I'll just do a quick intermission real quick. For those of you guys listening here on the live stream, say what's up in the comments. We're going to get to your comments soon. I see you in the comments. I appreciate you here. Thumbs up and like and heart and all that stuff. And if you're listening on the Untrapped podcast on Apple or Spotify, how you doing? You can watch these live streams. We're going live at Wednesday in the evening. It was 4 p.m. Now that the season's really kicked off and we're busy and a lot of people aren't home from work yet, 6 p.m. And then we're putting out 2 shows a week right now on Mondays and Thursdays on Apple, Spotify, and all the platforms. And then, yeah, so this is awesome. People have been reaching out like, when's the podcast going to be? It's like, Jesus, man, we've done so many shows, but let me check something real quick here.
Dude, somebody's commenting about how fast I talk. I'm a little Eastern. I got a little bit of Eastern. I've seen it in the comments here. Somebody's like, dude, that guy, how do you get a word in?
No. I don't want to get a word in. I've learned a lot about, I'm just, I don't really do this, but I'm just savoring out. Like, I've learned a lot by doing these podcast shows.
Yeah.
I started this podcast in 2014. We've done, I don't know, like 250 shows or something, maybe 300 by now. And I'm so used to making YouTube videos and doing all of the talking that I remember, I don't know if you see Gary Vaynerchuk, people in the comments when he interviews, be like, shut up, Gary, let him talk. People say this because Gary can't stop talking. So I've been corrected and I've had to really kind of be like, hey, wait a second, I'm having somebody as a guest on my show. Let them talk, let them be on a roll. Don't interrupt unless it's absolutely necessary to draw a point. And it was like,
yeah,
and
please
now
don't hesitate to interrupt me though, man. I mean, like totally. There's a couple of things that are coming in the comments I'm watching. Can I comment on some of that stuff?
you
Or
absolutely can. And if you
stuff?
comment, if you do, say their name so the people that can't see that are just listening, like say, hey, what's up, bro? What's up, Scott Pippen? And then say their,
Yeah, because I mean, like, there's some stuff that's rolling through there, and I mean, like, so they got Klein Lawn Care. I mean, there's some awesome gold nuggets that are coming up here. Andrew is the guy that said about I'm a bull rusher, so apologize for that. I mean, I know I'm in Eastern. I got that Scotty Pippen there. He said about being there
okay. You can go to Scott Pippen that you said. What did he say?
He said I'm a failure as a boss. Scott, man, reach out to me because I don't think that you are. I think there's a lot of things that happen in our lives that we may be ignorant of, but reach out to me and just say something because he's watching on YouTube right there. And I'm telling you, Scott, you're not a failure as a boss. There's just sometimes we don't know what we don't know. And there's a lot of good intentions. I'm seeing a lot of, especially those that are self-employed, they know a lot about how to do something. They know a lot about what to get done and how to actually perform that service. I mean, when I was doing my carpet cleaning business, to be quite frank with you guys, it was another failure. It was my very first business that I did. I knew how to install carpet. I knew how to do tile, and I was really, really good and talented at it. But I didn't understand all of these other things that I've learned now after 30 years of experience. And that's what I wish if I could just impart those things, those experiences. That's what I want to do. So here's my point. We know the guys that are doing stuff, you know how to get it done, but you don't always know how to be able to communicate what it is that you're doing, or you don't know how to communicate what it is that needs to be done or teach in a way that the people can learn. I saw somebody, and I don't know where it was at, but somebody said the youngsters are hooked on TikTok. The amount, who was that? Dusty? Dusty Huckers. Yeah. So yeah, it's right. You're right. These young guys are hooked on TikTok. Their attention span is like freaking short. And we're still giving them a freaking thick manual that's 100 pages long, and we expect them to read it. I guarantee you 100% they are not going to read that book. Never in a million years I get them to do that. TikTok is an endless stream and an infinity stream of videos that are about 30 seconds long. If you think in the way that they're consuming information right now, that will give you the ability. What are you doing?
Bro, I'm getting me a TikTok video clip right now, bro. I'm ADD. Let's go.
I love it. I love lives. I absolutely love lives. But if you seriously though, I mean, if we think about it, instead of using the TikTok as a negative, let's look at it as a positive and make 20-second videos and then just have it as a scroll so that people can learn how to freaking do their job, right? I mean, let's just absolutely go and embrace what it is. Let me give you this example. And again, cut me off at any point in time because I get all this stuff in my head and it just kind of tumbles all out. I'm sure almost everybody knows who Mr. Rogers was. I mean, that's an iconic platform. I mean, he is just one of the people that I grew up on. If you read his story, I don't know if it was a biography or an autobiography. I can't remember who wrote it. But if you read his story, when he was first introduced to television, and this is in Pennsylvania where he was living, when he was first introduced to television, he was appalled and astounded at the crap that was coming out of TV. To the point where he refused to allow that to be in his house. But then there's something in his mind that actually switched. He said, so many people are consuming TV. There is an opportunity there, a platform there, that if I create Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, I can have access to teach these kids some wholesome values. He was the very first individual to go on national TV and put his feet in a pool with another African-American to show that it was okay. And to break down the segregation and to stop some of the racism. Like he was the first guy to do that on TV. And it's amazing. Like when you look at that, he was appalled by something and then something switched in his head. And now he can actually look at it and say, I can use that to be something different, to teach and make an impact on all those people all those kids. I mean, literally thousands and thousands and thousands of kids that were able to cope with death in the family, able to cope with divorce, able to learn a little bit about what it's like to not be racist. I mean, like those kinds of powerful lessons. So anyway, let's just go ahead, man.
I watched Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood when I was a kid, and it was profoundly impactful and positive and transforming. It was that was super cool. And then I also watched Eddie Murphy's rendition of it on Saturday Night Live. And I love Eddie Murphy anyways.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, like, you can take anything that you're looking at, and that's whether it's the TikTok aspect, and that's a great example, because a TikTok is definitely something that can be a huge distraction. It's an infinity pool of videos, and that's the way they made it on purpose, is to be able to have it so that people are just scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, and they don't realize how much time is actually. Same thing with Instagram Reels. I mean, there's no difference in those. So you can choose to get angry about it, or you can choose to say, this is where the kids are at, and how can I touch and impact the kids today and be able to really truly teach them or have them get some of those values. I mean, it's your choice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I look at social media, man. Some of the stuff that people put on there, that's just like, it's almost like a total waste. And who cares if you can get a bunch of views and money and stuff like that? But
Yeah.
I'm gonna take like just like negative crap too. Like, but I back in the day, I wanted to do pranks and stuff. I saw this funny prank. I think it was on Venice Beach. This bodybuilder's trying to rinse off or something,
Oh,
and
the
the dude, he
shampoo
keeps
thing.
putting
Yeah,
the
I've seen that.
shampoo
Yeah.
on his head, and then she's like, "Rah!"
Yeah.
And I was laughing. So I guess there is huge entertainment value, but
Yeah.
but
Yeah, there
anyways,
definitely is. So which way do you want to go, Keith? You want to go and talk about values? You want to talk about foundations of company? Do you want to talk about how to build culture? I see Klein is asking about ways to build culture and show employees that you care. I mean, which direction you want to go? It's your
yeah,
prerogative.
I really love that question, and I want to actually look into the comments here and see what they want to say, because let's see, Dwayne Rose, Klein Lawn and Landscaping. Here, this is a great question. He says Klein Lawn and Lawn Care and Land Snow Plowing says, "What are some ways to build great culture and ways to show employees you care? I'm working on being quick to listen and slow to anger and slow to speak."
Aren't we all, Klein? Aren't we all? I'm going to go through a couple of things that I found to be practical. I've coached probably 100 not lawn care, 100 service businesses. One of the things that I would recommend is it actually comes down to like a parenting technique. You have to be physically present with them and experiencing things. So when I was talking, I'm going to relate this a little bit to when I was talking to the Michigan Department of Health, and we've all gone through this, and this is not a political statement. This is just the facts. The last 2 years, when it comes to the COVID in Michigan, we had federal that was telling the local health department what to do, and then we had our state officials and governors telling the local health department what to do. And the local health department was trying to listen to some of the local, whether it was the restaurants or whatever. But every time they got a new mandate, which was about every 12 hours through this thing, they had to go back and say, no, it's not about masks. No, wear mask. No, you need to close down. No, like it was just a freaking mess, right? And so their biggest challenge was, how do we create trust? How do we engage with trust and build that relationship back after it's changed multiple times? Okay, so let's apply this directly to your business. If you have multiple changes that are going on in your business, the changes erode the trust. Stability is what gives you trust. Now, the way you create stability is obviously having things that are consistent. That's number one. Number two is shared experiences. When you have a shared experience, it creates a bond between you and the employee. Now, you have to be careful on how deep the shared experience goes, but let me give you an example. When we were on Lego Masters, there were 24 of us that went through a shared experience. So we were all on the show, and we all had to go through a lot of crap. We got up at 4 a.m., 4:30, and then we didn't get back to the hotel until about 11 p.m. And that was about 5 days a week, 6 days. We got off early at 6 o'clock. So we're physically exhausted. We're, obviously mentally, we're constantly thinking, creating all of this kind of stuff. But by going through that shared experience, we have now created a bond with Lego Masters that it transcends politics. There's both the red and the blue in our group. It transcends, whether it's your gender identity, all that kind. It just transcends everything in the fact that we have a shared experience, which allows us now to say, you know what, some of that other stuff doesn't necessarily matter because we know that we can do this and we were able to get through it. So as an employer working with your employees, find ways to create shared experiences. They can be simple as you bring in and you make pancakes in the morning for your employees. Lunchtime, you bring everybody back and you do a barbecue. things like that make a huge difference. I'm going to call out Ryan Fox. I don't know if he listens to this, but he was one of my mentees or one of my coachees while I was working with them. One of the coolest things that he would do is he actually assigned this to his assistant, and she actually did this, but he would actually find out the favorite candy bar for all of his employees. And when he would recognize them reinforcing or doing something that equal to their company values or their company core values, he would reward them with their favorite candy bar. Now, they didn't necessarily know. Maybe they will now if they're listening. I don't know, but I'm giving away a secret. But he would actually do that and then reinforce that and give that as a way to be able to create a shared experience. The second thing that he did is he would take a full day off and take everybody out. They were out shooting skeet a couple times. They were doing, I can't even remember. They did Top Golf. They did, he would create experiences. And by sharing that experience, what it did is it allowed that culture to grow because they trusted each other. Now, when things happen, because things are going to happen in business where you're going sorry, dude, we don't have any work today. You're going home. That's going to happen, right? If you have shared experience and you have trust, the employees are willing to work with you through that stuff versus if they just feel like they're a number, a time clock, and they're just pulling a paycheck, they're going to be like, okay, I'll go somewhere else and find something else. But when you develop that relationship I'm probably not allowed to share. I shouldn't. That's Ryan's story to share. But I can tell you this. There were some very traumatic situations that happened in his employees' lives that employee came back and told Ryan, I feel like you guys are more of a family to me than anybody else that I've ever talked to. Because Ryan really, really focused, Ryan and Brett, his partner, they really focused on developing that culture and working with those shared experiences. So number one is consistency. Number two is creating shared experiences. And there's a whole lot of other things that we can go down, but those two things are paramount to be able to create a culture. Obviously, I'm making an assumption here that you have your values, your core values, your foundations, systems in place. I'm making all of that an assumption. We often miss that, what we would consider soft skills of being able to communicate and talk with your employees and actually do life together in a manner that's appropriate.
Yeah. I like that idea.
There's a lot more.
Building culture and bonding.
Yeah, Dwayne Rose is saying about buying lunch for his guys on a weekly basis. So there's probably a couple of guys. Read the comments. If you guys are watching this, read the comments because it looks like there's a couple of guys that got some great ideas in there.
Yeah, Dwayne Rose says, I buy lunch weekly for my guys, but I also teach my guys how to do work the right way to where we can go out and do their own thing one day. Oh, so they can go out and do their own thing one day. You got to teach. Yeah, so you play a mentorship role as well. Jim Duffin. I love Jim Duffin's always commenting very intelligent and smart-ass things in the comments. Quality of employee, quality of work. Well, that wasn't, but that was just a truism, he said.
Yeah, I'd be curious. Dustin Huckers, he actually said something about focus on the quality. It's a struggle to find people who can finish to a high standard. I would be curious though on that if it's too high of a standard, because as employers, as business owners, we often expect our employees to give us 100% just like what we would. They're never going to do that ever. They're never going to give you the exact same effort that you do. You own the business. You're passionate about it. If you can find somebody that's going to perform at around a 70 or 80% of your skill set or of your quality, man, you got a winner. I mean, set that bar a little bit lower there. And I don't know, again, we're reading a comment and there's probably 1,000 descriptions and details behind it. So I kind of, tongue in cheek kind of a thing here when you comment on some of this stuff, but yeah, absolutely. Hey, that Christmas bonus, I can't see who actually just said that because it was
Hen-Jur Christmas bonuses. Yeah,
I'm going to tell you one thing that I have talked to a lot of guys about. When you're doing that Christmas bonus, money is the least motivator. It actually does very little to motivate and very little to create culture. Now, do you need it sometimes? Absolutely. But I have seen people come, Brett Fry is another guy I coach. He's a great guy. Great. He does a power washing too. He was in power washing. He took a old wand and sprayed it gold as a prize for who was the best employee and that became the most coveted prize out of everything during the Christmas time. Is if you got the golden wand, you were like, that was it. Now,
Are you like talking about a pressure washing wand or something?
Yeah, just a regular pressure washing wand, just a broken pressure washing wand. He painted it gold, and it was called the Golden Wand Award. And
Oh,
he
like
actually
the
gave it
Golden
out at
Squeegee
every.
Award.
Yeah, he gave it out every. Yeah, do the squeegee. That's another thing. I mean, like, depends on your business. I mean, if you're landscaping, obviously, maybe it's the golden shovel. I don't know, but you make it per your business. But when you give out stuff that means things, I mean, that's why this golden brick means so much, is because of what's behind it. I mean, this is really truly a worthless piece of plastic. But when I tell people, like, hey, this is the golden brick, and it's because you did such a great job. I did this at Jay's Sporting Goods, and it was really for exemplary customer service. And the guy in the fishing department actually had a shared experience, and the customer came back and said, man, I can't believe how knowledgeable he was. He helped me out. He did all these things. And so we gave him the golden brick. And then they're supposed to pass it from people to people when they get good customer experiences that are coming back. So there's things like that. I mean, just be creative, and it really creates a solid culture that people appreciate each other and actually work really well with each other. So,
but what can you talk real quick about circumventing the issue of having the right people in the right seats, though? Sometimes it could literally be the wrong person. Like, how do you identify and have discernment of your stuff versus their stuff and the lines and
the
boundaries?
toxic employee, I would say that's probably the hardest one. I can't name names, but I'm going to give you an illustration because it's happened so many times. It could be in almost every freaking business. There is often, when we start a business as an employee, an employer, when we start a business, we make, let me put it this way. We're visionary. And when we talk about things, we're talking about the future, and it comes across as an absolute. So typically our first employees that come in, they look at us and they hear it. And while we're talking like this is one possible outcome, and that's what's going on in our brain, they hear it as an absolute. This will absolutely happen. That absolute turns into, and there's two different toxic people. This is the first one that I'm going to talk about. That absolute turns into what they hear is a promise. They hear a promise that I'm going to get a raise, that I'm going to be the lead, I'm going to be the foreman, I'm going to be whatever that promise is that they hear becomes their absolute.
Bro, if you knew me, like, well, we didn't know each other, but if you ever did business with me, I'm so like shrewd, and I always keep everything at arm's length, and everything is like very conditional. 30-day terms. We'll try it out. No deals. We'll just try a project, see how that works.
Yeah.
And I was like, I just push things so far back. It's like, I don't like jumping in all the way and making promises with anybody on anything, bro. I've just, because I have friends that I've watched, build and fail in like 16 businesses before they found them. And I've watched so many things just blow up that, oh man. Anyways.
Yeah, so here's where this whole thing is going, is if they hear that promise and that piece of that. So if they're the very first people that are coming in as an employee, they hear that, and then it doesn't come to pass. And whether that's 6 months, 9 months, 10 years, I don't care how long it is, that individual, while they may have been a great employee at the beginning, will turn into a very toxic employee. And those are often the hardest ones to fire because, like, well, he's my friend. Or we went through this business together. We had to go. Yes, you can work through it and try to talk to them and whatever, but quite frankly, it's your fault for talking the way that you did. And unfortunately, the end result 9 times out of 10 will always be you have to let that toxic person go.
Dan Kennedy has some tremendous topics he talks about this, and it's actually inappropriate to talk about here because without giving you the context of why he says what he says, it'll just make him sound like he's like a mean guy. Yeah. But he says these very specific, interesting things. One in particular, to give you a hint, he says like he goes, not people are invaluable, but certain positions of doing certain tasks, it doesn't matter if that employee has been there for 5 times longer than the other guy. That's how much that task pays. And he says some people think that they should just keep getting paid more and more and more, and just because they've been there longer. And he goes, that's just not the case.
Yeah, I would say that whole concept right there, that is, if you've never read it, you need to read it. It's called Mentor Leader by Tony Dungy. The best book when it comes
by Tony who?
Tony Dungy. He was the coach for the Indianapolis Colts. And he wrote a book, the best book that I have ever read in mentor leadership or servant leadership. Best book I've ever read. 100% hands down best book. His philosophy while he was coaching the Indianapolis Colts that went on to win multiple series, and they had a great winning season. His philosophy is called the next man up, which means you're valuable, but you're not irreplaceable. So you're valuable to us. And this is a hard concept to be able to get across to individuals. You're valuable, but you're also not irreplaceable. And he has a story in there where one of his lead linebackers ended up, I think it was maybe as the defensive line. I can't remember which, but anyway, he just took off. And he sent, instead of Tony going down, he actually sent the guy that was just right above him over to the airport because he heard he was leaving. And he said, look, you're valued as a team member. We want you here. But at the same time, if you leave, we're going to still be okay. Because we have a system in place that the next man up is going to fill your role. So it's a really interesting concept because now it became about the company and about the team, not about an individual, not about a person who then would have all of the leverage and say, well, if I go, then everything. No, dude, just create that next man up, create the system that's just bringing the next man up. And that should be the culture that creates that great leadership, servant leadership type culture. So
I love what you just said. And the reciprocal of that would be, to me, the way I'm interpreting this would be the guardian of the black box. It would be entrusting someone in particular person so much that they build a technology or a way of doing things around a certain area of your business where it becomes a silo and they're the only person who knows how to do that thing. Or maybe they've created something in the office or a systematized way of doing something that they're the only ones and they know it. And then they use it as leverage because they know if you fire them, an entire pillar of your business just comes crashing down. And so it can turn into a toxic situation. Have you ever heard of anything like that? Or any way to remediate it?
Yeah. Let me just grab these dogs real quick. They're being stupid. So I know we're live. I'm sorry. They're just barking really, really loud.
Oh, the doggies are barking. Hey, we'll do a quick commercial. I don't ever do commercials on lives. They're always on the replay.
I'll do a commercial real quick. I'm all done.
Guys, well, now I got to do it because I just started it. If you're looking for an amazing software to run your business on, look no further than Jobber. I've been using Jobber for about 4 years in my landscaping and window cleaning business, and I love it. And I can't imagine running my business without it. And I want to tell you about my favorite feature inside of Jobber. Jobber, by the way, is a CRM. It's a customer relationship management software program. It's totally affordable, and it makes you just next level in your business. It collects payments. It does billing and invoicing. But my favorite feature is the automated customer follow-up feature. So if you're on the phone with a customer and you're taking down their information in Jobber and you book them for a quote, you just literally book the time. You press a button and it automatically sends it to the customer's email, a nice professional email. Congratulations, or you've booked with so-and-so landscaping and we will be there this time. And then when you do it, boom, it can send them a text or a follow-up saying you're on your way. And then you can convert it to an invoice, and then they can literally just pay their bill online. So my customers mostly just pay their bill online through Jobber payments. It's awesome. If you want to get a free trial and get my exclusive discount, which is a huge discount, go to getjobber.com/Kelfus, Kalfas, getjobber.com/Kelfus. And now back to the show.
Hey, we feel like we're actually on a real podcast. I mean, like that was.
We are in a real podcast.
I mean, like one of those Dan Bongino things or whatever that are like, we're the top list. Let's go, baby. I love it.
You want another commercial?
No. We're good. We're good. Bill Hall wants you to do a commercial about the book, your first year in landscaping business. So you got 2 commercials coming.
Bill Hall, I love and appreciate all your support, man.
All right, so what you're talking about, and the original part of that is the fact of becoming. See, knowledge has power. There's actually a couple of things in business that have power and have control, and knowledge is one of those things. So if you allow somebody to be able to control the knowledge of what's going on in your organization without a system, without something else, and having backups, that knowledge becomes leverage. Because if they're the only ones that know how to do something or how things function and how it funnels, that's one of the most, I don't say most powerful, but it's a really, really powerful leadership tool that you have to really be careful of. And this, I actually talk about this in Leading Others. There's 5 powers of influence. And knowledge is one of the main powers of influence, which comes through the experience. And that can be basically all your powers of influence can be used either for good or evil, depending on how you use that. So to combat that is to actually understand how people use that to influence the other employees. And they don't have to be a CEO. They don't have to be an owner. They could be sweeping the floors. And if they have more experience and understand how things are going, they will have more influence than the CEO will. And I've seen this happen in small companies as well as in large corporate companies.
Hey, what are the other 4 powers of influence there?
The other 4, I'll give. There's 5 of them. Okay, so number
5.
1. Yeah, this is how you influence, flat out.
Wait, who created this proprietary framework? Is this you? Did you create this?
No. This has actually been researched and studied. I won't be able to quote it because it was in my leadership master's thing. I can't remember where I got it from, but I know that there's only 5. So look it up.
Okay.
1 is reward. It's the carrot. 2 is punishment or the stick. You can influence people by punishment or reward either way. 3 is position. The easiest way for me to explain this, if a cop is pulling up behind you and turns his lights on, he's going to influence you to pull your butt over because he's in a position of authority. So position. Now, the last 2 are the hardest ones to identify, but they're also more powerful than the first 3. Number 4 is woo, winning others over. This is what a lot of people consider charisma, the ability to communicate on their level or communicate in their preferred language. And this is a whole nother conversation that we can go into, but the ability to communicate at where they're at. And then 5 is what we call the experience, and experience equals knowledge. So you have reward, punishment, position, woo, and experience. Those are the 5 powers of influence. And that's how you lead anybody or how you get anyone to do anything. One of those things.
So reward, punishment, position, woo, charisma, winning them over to like whatever you're
woo
championing
is
on your mission.
Over. That's what it's WOO. So it's woo, winning others over.
Winning others over. Because I listened to this amazing audio tape one time called The Billionaire Way. And I think the guy was a billionaire, and he was talking about all the qualities of a billionaire. He said one thing that stuck out to me. He goes, the billionaire always needs everybody's help. He's constantly, he's like championing a movement and needs everybody to help because, like if you think about it. So that level of charisma. Now, with all that being said, if you draw a line down the middle, what's the difference between somebody who's like heart-centered and soul-centered and their moral compass is in the right and it's all like for the goodness of those people versus somebody who's a straight-up sociopath? Like, where's the line?
I would call him a narcissist. I mean, straight-up narcissist kind of a thing.
Narcissist.
And that comes down to this is the personal growth side of things. Again, that's why I have the 5 building
because
blocks.
some narcissists are highly successful people. They're very good at getting other people on board, and they're like some of the most successful people are narcissists. So
let's use public figures, and I'm just going to call them powerful leaders based on the fact that they can influence others. Okay, that's it. I'm not saying that I'm actually going to say that they're evil. Some are definitely evil, but they are strong leaders because they influence nations. Okay. We're going to go back in history just to avoid any politics for right now.
Be careful what you say. So the algorithm.
Yeah, I know. So let's go back in history, and that way we'll just leave the history part of it. Right. So when we look at history, we can actually find and pull leaders. So let's look at Mother Teresa. She had incredible influence and incredible leadership skills because she was heart-centered. She had a good moral foundation and was able to influence Gandhi, another great example of how to be able to influence an entire nation. Now, in a good way, good positive way. Now, another great example, not in a good way, but it is a good example, is Hitler. Hitler influenced an entire country to start attacking the entire world and then to massacre an entire population, millions of individuals. And you can see the same thing with inside of Italy.
Bro, it's real quick. I'm listening right now to the book I'm reading constantly, but I'm halfway through with the book, The Theory of Everything by Ken Wilber, who's thought to be one of the most intelligent people to ever walk the planet modern day. He wrote the book, The 1, 2, 3 of God, Cosmic Consciousness. He's been interviewed by Sounds True with Tammy Simon. Dude is like, he talks about the lines, levels, states, and stages of consciousness. And right now he's talking about in the book The people in that time in Nazi Germany that were doing those things, the horrendous things, the people that were actually carrying it out, they were husbands and fathers and had
They were
wives and children, and they kept clean houses and they ate dinner, and they were like in one aspect, I'm not saying this like I'm trying to talk not out of the side of my mouth, but they could have been perceived as level, stable people. So when he's talking about technology, you got people that on very high level moral foundations of science can build these amazing technological breakthroughs, but once it's built, people who aren't so moral, who are like narcissists and psychopaths, or people at lower levels of consciousness, get a hold of that stuff.
Yep.
And he's talking about all these primordial type of feedback loops in consciousness, and it's like it really opens your eyes, and it's important to see that. See, now I'm going down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, well, let's kind of bring it all back together here on this part of it. So those are the 5 powers of leadership. They can be used for good and bad, good and evil. Like there's no doubt that there's 2 sides of that. For you, in order to be able to effectively manage, and that's why it's the 3rd building block, you have to understand who you are and build your own personal growth plan. And there's 4 pillars. You're, like I told you, so physical, mental, social, and spiritual. And if you don't have that foundation, then you are going to lean towards the narcissistic side of leading others. And I would say that you would actually be manipulating others, not influencing them. And the difference between manipulation and influence is out of the betterment and the good to create a better individual. Manipulation is for your personal gain.
I love everything you just said. It just triggered something in my head that's very practical, tactical, fundamental. So what if someone's like, well, I want to grow this multi-million-dollar business and hire all these employees and promise them payroll and benefits and all these things and company vehicles, but I just can't seem to get the profit margins high enough to even be able to afford all that shit. So I feel like I'm lying when I'm saying all these goals because the economics ain't working.
So what's the question?
The question is, what if the economics don't meet up to the person's vision and they can't get the damn economics to work? The actual, the money.
Go back to the drawing board. I mean, like, numbers are numbers. They're not going to lie. Exactly. I mean, like, you can have a grand vision of where you want to be and what you want to do, but if the numbers aren't working, then there's no way that you're going to be able to physically.
I've done the math. Like, for an example, I'd be like, okay, for me to have all this stuff, I need to charge, oh my God, to pay everybody medical and health insurance and dental and all these things and have this whole vision. I need to charge $186.43 per man hour. Sit all Sunday crunching it. And then I go tell the customer it's going to be, I don't know, this price. And they're like, what? That's 5 times more expensive than the other landscaper. So do these guys build on these extremely thin, razor thin profit margins to be able to do this stuff and build this culture and company?
Now you're asking a very complex question that we have about 8 minutes to answer. So here's the biggest challenge that you're going to look at, and let's see if I can simplify this in just a really short kind of a proverbial statement of some sort. You will, if you're selling on price, you're probably always going to fail. People don't buy on the price.
We show up in tuxedos and shit and trim your shrubs and do the mulch and lay the bricks. Yeah.
So the number one thing, and this is what always blows me away, is how in the world can a pair of Nikes be worth $300-400 when I can go down to Walmart and buy a pair of shoes that are going to be very, very close to the same quality, not the same brand, but very close to the same quality for about $30 or $40.
Mm-hmm.
Why can somebody do that? How does Nike actually get that? Because they don't sell on the price. They're selling on the image. They're selling on the emotional experience. So when you're talking about price, if that's your focal point, and I don't care what business you're in, if you're talking about price, you're never going to win. 100%, you're never going to win. There's actually a whole thing that I do that I go through a whole sales process, and I know that there's other people that do this, but number one is it's a 4-legged stool. Number one is the know, like, trust, but I like to call it a little bit different. One is the shared experiences. 2 is the fact that you got to get a belly laugh with them. And then 3 is they're going to trust you as the expert, right? So you've established yourself as the expert. Once that's done, now you have the ability to influence or manipulate depending on which way you go. The next step is to kill the competition. And what I mean by that is you actually have to work on the emotional part of things. So when you're talking to them, they're not buying landscaping. They're not buying a shrubbery. They're buying a backyard experience with their friends. They're buying the keep up with the Joneses. They're buying all of that. If you price based on, if you're selling just on price and not on the emotional aspect and all the other things that come with it, you're going to lose. So once you have the emotion attached to what your service is, then you can go to, can you afford it? And that has to be solved, because you could sell $1 million yacht, but if you can't afford it, they're going to cancel on you every time. So you have to make sure that it's affordable. Sometimes it has to come through payments. Sometimes it has to come through some financing. Sometimes there's other ways to be able to do that. If you're selling a high ticket, there's a way to be able to work on that. And then the last one is my MSRP. Whatever price you set down in front is going to be okay, because you've established your trust. You've established yourself as the expert. You've tied in the emotion, and they're buying an experience. They're not buying a product. They're buying an experience. They understand that they can afford it. And once they know that they can afford it, then everything else is okay. That's the process 100% of the time when it comes to sales.
Dude, I could say something for sure. Simple as lawn care. I am a homeowner, and I cut my grass sometimes, but a whole year, 2 years, I have a company cut my grass. And I think, I don't know, I kind of like cutting it. But anyways, I would be willing to pay way more to a company that shows up mostly the same time every week, and they send me an actual like invoice, and I have a contract, and I know that they're very conscientious, and they don't cut down my wife's roses and she's upset, and they understand my property. They blow off everything in the basement windows and the stoops, and they go that extra mile to make sure, and they're professional, because I can see the value, and it's totally worth it to me to pay extra.
Let me pause you on that, because you're actually not buying. You just said this, and this is a great illustration. You just said this. You're not buying the fact that they're cutting your lawn. You're buying the experience that they're giving to you. That's what you're paying for.
Which is peace of mind.
100%. 100%. I mean, if you can have that experience, you can charge probably double your prices. If you can start selling on experience and having them be emotionally attached to that, you could probably double your prices tomorrow and be fine.
I love it. They say we actually show up and do what we say we're going to do and say we're going to do it. Here's everything on our website.
To me, that's an expectation.
Trifleable, sure. Huh?
Yeah. Right now, I feel like everybody should show up. And if you're not showing up, then, that's like the bare minimum. And if you're not doing that, then, dude, I had an experience with the pressure washer that promised he was going to be here, and then he never showed up to my house, and I never talked to him again. I never did. I hired a guy that was an hour away to come and do the job, and he was actually about $200 more because the other guy didn't show up.
Yes. And it didn't surprise you?
No, I've worked with a lot of pressure washers. I've worked with a lot of pressure washers. So,
all right, I'm going to do a couple quick shout outs. I'm sorry, what were you saying?
I was going to say, is there any other questions, any other things that you want to hit or touch on? There's a lot of comments going on through here, so. I'm
going to run out. You said you had to get off in 8 minutes. That's in 3 minutes. So I'm going to do a couple quick shout outs, and then we'll wrap this up. Mr. Tidy Garden, what's up, bro? Thanks for being on here. I love how you're always on my shows and showing love, bro. Luke Trukden, thank you. Emerson, Carmen Knoll, Klein Lawn Care and Landscaping, Trey, Alicia Strickland, Andrew W. DeMorris, the Dusty Huckers, Jim Duffin, Dwayne Rose, Scott Pippin, Bill Hall. A couple more. I don't want to miss anybody. Go to the bottom. MCM Lyrics. Thank you so much. How can everybody find you, Tim Croll?
The easiest spot is to go to my website. It's my name, timcroll.com, and you can find all kinds of information, pieces and parts there. Another way is honestly Google. When you Google my name, it pops up all over the place, whether it's for Lego Masters, speaking engagements, coaching, training. I'm just Google my name and you'll find lots of ways to get in touch with me.
Tim Croll. Awesome, man. I'll put all that in the links in the show notes of our show. Also, this will be coming out on Apple and Spotify. If you don't have time to watch it, you can also pop on your earbuds while you work, and you can listen to it over there on the Untrapped Podcast with Keith Kalfas. And I'm going to be on your podcast very soon. What's the name of your podcast, Tim?
It's brand new. We're just launching. So we're actually telling stories. It's called Narrative. We're telling real stories about real people, the hard knocks, the bends in the roads, the times that you get knocked down. We're telling real stories.
So make sure you check out the Narrative Podcast with Tim Croll. Thanks so much for being on my show, man. It's been a pleasure. I can't wait. You're in Michigan as well, so I'd like to travel up and maybe we could do a podcast show on camera in person. So,
yeah, sounds good, man.
Over and out. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, man.